Welcome, everyone, to the second episode of our brand new podcast, Organic Talk on Artificial Intelligence. Here we'll deep dive into the intersection of AI, software development, and cybersecurity. This will be unscripted, slightly edited perhaps, but rarely, and significantly based on caffeine consumption. And the idea is to bring you sort of what's going on in the world of AI and how it's impacting both software development and cybersecurity. And this will involve some interesting discussions, maybe some look at technology, and a fair bit of speculation, I should imagine. I'm Fraser Scott. I'm a chief scientist at Iris Risk, and joining me today are Allie. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Is it Howe or Howe?
It's Howe. No, no worries.
We'll do magic of editing.
That's all good.
I'm Fraser Scott, chief scientist at Iris Risk, and joining me today are Allie Howe and Jose Lopez. So, Allie, would you like to say hello and introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi. Thanks so much for having me, Fraser. I'm Allie. I am the founder of Growth Cyber. I'm a vCISO there, and our goal is to help AI startups with security and compliance. So it looks like helping with like SOC 2, NIST AI RMF, helping them with vulnerability assessments, all the way from finding the product market fit, all the way to has some decent revenue. So sort of the whole like startup life cycle, we can be a part of your journey for security all the way through. And so, yeah, that's me.
Thank you. Very much needed by the sounds of it. And Jose?
Thank you, Fraser. I'm Jose, and head of AI and industries.
Cool. So this podcast was born out of the need to cut through. There's a lot of stuff out there. So the idea is the podcast is to cut through the noise and really examine how AI is changing how we build and secure software. As we know, developers are today faced with like a wave of new tools and technologies and challenges. So we're really here to explore what that impact is, the good, the bad, and the unexpected. So this is the second episode. Last time we spoke about some of that impact on developers. And as we go through the future of the coming months and years, we'll bring in expert guests like Allie. We'll dive into emerging trends and tackle some of the big questions about the future of software development. So whether you're an AI enthusiast, skeptic, or just trying to keep up with the rapid pace of change, hopefully this podcast is for you. So a special thanks to Iris Risk for making this podcast happen. And with that, let's get straight into it. So, Allie, tell us a little bit about what you're currently working on.
Yeah, so for me right now, one of the things that I'm working on at the moment is the OWASP Agentic AI initiative. So our goal is to put together guidance on AI agentic security for the community. So it looks like doing a lot of research, a lot of like expert consultation and amongst ourselves. So right now, our latest achievements are that we released a threats and mitigations guide on AI agents on February 17th. So we thought through all the different ways, sort of unique threats to agentic systems, single agent, multi-agent, depending on what tools they're connected to. We were able to come up with some pretty like unique security threats around them, which hopefully are helpful to the community. But in order to test and see how helpful they really are, we're going to be putting on a Agentic AI hackathon in New York City on April 1st from 6 to 9 p.m. If you're in New York City, would love to see you there. The goal of that hackathon is for builders to come together and build and secure examples of agentic systems. So, whether you know how to make your system, insecure by design, or maybe you have built an agent and want to see if it's insecure, you can come to us at that hackathon. We'll tell you how to see if it's insecure. And the goal would be to map those examples we create to the threats that were released in that threats and mitigations guide on 2/17. So then we can see, how easy was it to create an example of this? Is this something we're really going to see in the wild? And kind of like iterate our, recommendations and threats from there. So that's a big focus for me. Secondly, I've been noticing a big like trend on X recently about like vibe coding and how that can create a lot of security vulnerabilities. I think it's really great for builders that are non-technical to be able to now build entire apps thanks to these AI tools. However, there's a lot of like security risks that come with it, especially if you're not used to thinking about security when creating an application, if you've ever created an application before. So I want to help these people. I want to help them, enable them to be able to, create their own startup. And you really can't create a startup and create a revenue generating product if it's being, taken down by hackers and, the DDoS attacks and you're leaking your secrets all over the place. So really working on putting some guidance out there, either maybe like a course or an offering around like vulnerability assessments for these individuals. Yeah, because I mean, everyone should have their shot at, I guess, like the American dream, as we call it. Like you should be able to make your amazing app and make tons of dollars and help a bunch of people. So security shouldn't be the blocker there. So that's kind of one of my goals also.
Very, very interesting. There was a paper, I think a year ago or so, on the percentage of the percentage of code that's generated by AI and whether that's secure or insecure. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Are we seeing this vibe coding sort of inherently insecure because of the large language models they're using, or is there insecurity coming into these products by some other means?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's both. I think I've seen these large language models recommend packages that are out of date or have security vulnerabilities in them. And I think, maybe at the time that those language models were trained and released, those packages were probably secure. But, as time goes on, more CVEs and more vulnerabilities are found. So these language models need to be continuously trained and updated to be able to recommend the latest and most secure package. I've also seen these tools create, insecure design patterns in code. So for example, like I found a sub-resource integrity error on script tags that this application via a no code app had created. So there was like no integrity check on whether the JavaScript script that I was loading was what I expected it to be. So like there was no like, hashing going back and forth to say like, okay, well, this is what I downloaded. Does it match what I expect it to be? So without that, like a hacker could come in and modify a script. And so, you think you're downloading what you need to run for your website, but really it's this malicious script over here instead. So I think maybe I don't know if it's the large language models or if it's, something that was hard coded and this AI no code generator tool should be able to like, create that same, like, it looked like boilerplate code, to be honest. I'm not sure actually if a LLM did generate that specific example. And then also just like, being secure by design, like certain principles, like a no code app wouldn't go into like your Supabase, for example, and create row level security policies. It can't generate that for you. That's something you're going to have to do. And so it's this idea of like, yes, you're going to create this application, but it's going to be connected to a database and then it's going to be deployed. And then like, you're going to need maybe like a WAF in front of that. And so like, there's this, architectural design pattern knowledge that these no code apps or like, cursors and lovables of the world, they're not going to be doing that for you. So that's still something you need to learn at the end of the day. Maybe we have an AI agent that helps with us with that, like eventually, but we're not there yet. So, security does need to be baked into these sorts of applications.
It seems like we are going to need an agent that is checking if our design is good enough, or another agent who is going to be the real coder. Isn't it?
Yes.
So something I have seen is that there is a trend from the last year to this year. That study is from December 2023. It was by Meta, and it was based on GPT 3.5 and GPT 4. Not exactly state of the art right now. And there is a trend right now. I think up to Sonnet 3.5, it was good enough. But the reasoning models there is a gap with the reasoning models. We can see that the bytecoding is the same way we were feeling one year ago that you could do something, more or less automatically. We can see right now that by coding is going to be something in the future. You are going to be able to describe your application, and something is going to magically create the whole thing. And probably the more, orthodox people is going to say, yeah, but you are not using exactly the architecture that you should use, etc., etc. But if you think about that, all these architectures is for humans. Humans, we are limited, and we need to structure the whole thing in a way. But the large language model is okay with that thing. It is going to absorb the whole thing. So yeah, maybe this going. I'm not maybe 100%. There is going to be from now to, I don't know, 1 year and 2 years, not more than that. We are going to be more in the middle of the code and the large language models doing something. But there will be a moment where everything is going to be in their hands, and you need to be worried about what you are asking, because that's the design.
Mhm.
What you're asking is going to have flaws by design or not.
Mhm.
I don't think, by the way, that the models are going to have a lot of problems from the security perspective. The last time I checked, think the company, the cybersecurity company, they were testing Sonnet 3.7, and the flaws for a complete by coding, just saying, hey, I want this, and it needs to be 100% secure, please. I'm going to be fired otherwise, the whole thing. This is the end of the world. Then the model is paying a lot of attention to that part, and there is almost zero flaws. Zero flaws is very impressive. There was a specific flaw with a regex, super difficult to understand for a human, but it was not, a security problem. It was a problem that you can solve.
A denial of service attack.
Yeah.
What you said is, I've experienced this myself, where I think I've had it on Claude 3.7, where when using I think it was LangChain, like LangChain changed some of its packaging recently, and so I think it was Claude, or maybe I was using ChatGPT 4.0. It was saying, use this particular set of packages in Python, and though I was getting warning messages that these were deprecated.
Yeah.
And the solution was not to use the correct packages that the deprecation warning was telling me to use. What the AI was trying to do, the LLM was trying to pin and downgrade all of my packages to older versions strategy. Now, I can only assume that this is maybe a temporary thing. Do we, if the trend is going from, GPT 3.5 being terrible at coding to Sonnet being virtually secure, what's the current trend on that training period that you mentioned, Allie? Like, are we seeing the models based on more and more recent data, or are we going to have to get to a point where the agent is proactively going to see what the latest package is and say, okay, I need to use these packages, let me go and see what the current version is and recommend that, rather than based purely on what it's been trained on? What do we think is going to sort of happen there?
I think maybe we get into a world where it's more of the agentic piece, because I've seen what multi-agent systems are really good at is, like, I've seen the example. For example, if you're gonna, like, say you're a writer and you're writing a script for like a movie or something, and then you've got like another editor agent, and you can take these two agents in a multi-agent system, and they can go back and forth and iterate on different versions. And I feel like we'll see something in the vulnerability management space like that, or if not, just like the the AI coding piece, where like one agent is responsible for taking a first pass on creating this code or this design pattern, and then the other agent might come in and say, okay, like, I'm going to go review this for security. They're going to iterate on it behind the scenes one or two times, and then it's going to come back to you, and you're not going to see that interaction as the user, but as a result, you might have packages that are more up to date, have less security flaws in them, or is a better pattern by design. I've seen that pattern work really well. So I don't know why it couldn't be used here. That might be one way this goes, but they could be solved other ways, I'm sure, too, as well.
Yeah, 100% agree. And with Cursor, for example, right now, you can say when you are using LangChain, use this LangChain. I mean, you can say this is the documentation from LangChain, and it's going to use it as part of the context. And it is basically reading the whole thing. And I remember that when I started using Cursor, I started using AutoGen. It was like something not very well known, and it was super old. Everything if you use the large language model directly. But then I created this PDF for my model. It was doing it a super good job. But it was reading the whole thing. It was reading the example. What I did was to create the examples, by the way. So I give it a lot of examples. I was using the coded things in the coded way. Yeah.
At the risk of a possible tangent, but just to pick on what you were saying, Allie, a bit further. So let's say you're in let's say you're in the business of building a banking app or something like that, and it's going to be some sort of agentic AI banking service or something like that. Now, you're not necessarily the expert in cybersecurity, so you could go and build your own cybersecurity agents, but that's possibly not what your expertise is in. So are there protocols out there? Is there an established way by which your set of agents would be able to communicate with, for example, Iris Risk's agents who are experts in security? It sounds like we're sort of heading towards an ecosystem of different organizations with their own collections of agents, being able to interact with agents where you need specialization beyond your sort of four walls. Is that sort of a pattern that's there or forming? Are there protocols, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think, one thing I've seen in popularity recently is like, MCP, the Model Context Protocol. I feel like that's, a valid use case for how agents might, communicate and talk to each other in the future. I think that's helpful because it helps the agent decide, like at the time of like logic or inference time, decide, like, here's all these tools that I'm connected to, via the MCP protocol. Which one could help me the most with this task? And then it's able to independently decide, per each, task, like which one it needs to use. And I also think like MCP could be helpful from a security perspective as well, just because it's a implementation that needs to be created just like one time. And then every other like application could be able to use that MCP server like over and over again. So you run less of a risk of someone, either like messing up the implementation and making like, a human error and having that like communication be insecure. If it's just like one server that everybody's using, I'm sure like there's more of a chance that like people are going to discover if there is anything wrong with it, like for security, it'll be reported. If there's lots of people using it, there's more of a chance it's going to be like more maintained, and those things will be fixed. So yeah, I feel like MCP would be one of the ways we see agents communicate together. And I totally agree. I feel like that's where the ecosystem is going, is like everyone's just going to start selling like their agents, and businesses are going to buy agents, and they're all going to be expected to work together behind the scenes.
Is anyone building an agent marketplace then, or is that a thing already?
Well, it was created by Anthropic, and there is like a place where you can go and download your NCE.
Sell your
wares. Yes. It's interesting because you can see a model creating 3D figures and things like that using the NCP server against the application. It's fantastic. It's like the logic of your application is in the large language model, and it's just like, figure out the whole thing using the different tools. Which I remember that Ricard Patti, like in the very beginning, in the early days, he was saying that when agents were like an experiment, he was saying that he saw in a future like the large language model being like a operating system, and then the different tools, using the different tools. And it's not exactly like this, but it's being more or less the image that we have right now. Yeah, that's very interesting, by the way.
Yeah, I guess if you sort of sat down and did some Wardley mapping of this stuff, there'll be some pretty obvious evolutions happening and sort of new capabilities building on top of those evolutions. We've talked about like secure code versus insecure code being created by AI or LLMs. What's the state of research with agentic approach to generating secure? Are we starting to see the sort of the emergence of research into the cybersecurity effects of agentic approaches as opposed to just like raw LLMs?
I have not seen anything. Probably that's because you have like 3 or 4 different frameworks for agents, and then different orchestrations. Like, there are more railways. One agent is talking with another agent, and another agent is talking with another. And so one is more, or another. There is like every single agent is in the same room, and all of them are sharing the same context. So there are different organizations of different agents. I will say that I have not seen any security. I have done some research and I have not seen anything, but I'm thinking that maybe the problem, no, it's not the problem, is that you need to focus your research into one specific orchestration of agents. So, I mean, it's very difficult to do it in, like general. It's like, this is how I am organizing my agents, and this can be more secure than the other. Logic says, more or less, then the state of the art right now is more like railway is easier even for a human. But there are some experiments of agents spawning of other agents. It's like one super agent creating another agent in the middle of nowhere, like coding the other agent using that other agent. That's in the research state. But the same way 1 year ago, or let's say 1 year and a half ago, the current state was an experiment. Probably in 2 years from now, this is going to be the case. And that's a completely different world. If you have an agent creating another agent, the security problems needs to be, focused in a very specific way. But if you have your own agents, talking in a railway way, that's another kind of security problem that you are going to have. So I think it's a little, probably it's a little, it's early. we are in an early moment. So yeah, this is going to happen, but I don't know. And at this pace, maybe 2 weeks, but yeah, this is not exactly, or at least I have not seen anything. I don't know if you have seen something, Ali.
No, I agree. I same for me. I haven't seen much there. The only thing I've seen is that sort of like multi-agent system in use, which I feel like you just mentioned as well, where the agents work together to maybe one is like researching CVEs and the other agent is trying to figure out if like this is actually a threat for this specific code base. And then if it is, maybe a third agent's like creating a recommendation on how we're actually going to triage and deal with this vulnerability.
Yep. We haven't seen any sort of some solid research out there yet on the, I guess, the impact of security on the agents or the agents on the security of the code. Okay, interesting. It does. It's an interesting idea of the agents being created dynamically, because I guess, Addy, from your point of view, like with the OWASP project, security around agents and to secure implementation and development, etc., of these agents, it must get like exponentially harder if as humans aren't even in control of the creation of the agent, right? You just I don't know how to phrase this, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's tricky because I feel like, creating agents can look and feel so many different ways. Like, I know, like, Salesforce has like agents like built into their product that you can like create. I think like Microsoft, like Copilot has something similar. So people that work at enterprises, large enterprises, have access to these tools could just like using basically like essentially no code editors create agents to help them with their productivity at work. And then like that's one end of the spectrum, but like the other end of the spectrum is like you've got people that are, using like, the lane graphs and the Pydantic AIs of the world to create their own like agents from scratch, essentially, and publishing those. So in either case, I think we need protections in place for if we're going to be using these agents. Like we need some sort of observability, we need some sort of AI security runtime protections in place to monitor the actions of these agents. I've even seen like some interesting research, I think from Anthropic as well, around just because you've created this agent, you think that it's going to do your use case as it was designed, they can become misaligned. So their goals might be different than the goals that you had intended for them. And figuring out, discovering that can be extremely difficult, just in the same way that, a model backdoor could be extremely difficult to find out, which I think Anthropic had published papers on that as well, like deceptive behaviors in models. Super hard to discover. The only way you can really do it is by seeing how that model's outputs compares to other models. And so if you're asking the question, what happened in Tiananmen Square, like to DeepSeek, for example, that's going to answer it very differently than other models would. But whether or not you want to classify that as deceptive behavior maybe is a different discussion. But at the end of the day, like you need to be monitoring your agents for misalignment. Are their goals different than yours? Is there deceptive behavior at play? Or is this like the evals are just off? Maybe you've trained it like, the wrong way. And the fact that all that stems from the fact that like AI is non-deterministic. We cannot predict that just because it handled the situation one way, it's going to handle it the same like later on, because LLMs can change as users interact with them, not just with code deploys. Like software of the past has changed. So yeah, I feel like runtime security observability for agents specifically to monitor their actions, what they're doing, is super super important. And the last example I'll give is if you're an agent that has been given the task of responding to emails or something, and it's expected that that agent have access and permission to your email and be able to have permission to send emails. How are we going to categorize a malicious action from one that's not? So like if that agent has like gone rogue and is starting to like exfil your data and send it out to other people, via email, like yes, it's allowed to send email. It's like that permission is being respected, but the information it's sending is absolutely like not okay. That's not something we should allow it to do. But how are we going to catch that? How are we going to write anomaly rules to detect that? Like how are the modern like SIEMs and the XDRs of the world responding to this? Are we seeing a whole nother AI security like category, which I think we are. I think we're seeing a whole new category of AI runtime tools that are going to be able to detect these things. And I think the very best ones that are going to sit in this space are the ones that are going to have visibility into the agentic tool calls to understand what it's connected to, understand the context of why it's taking this action, to be able to flag certain things as, this was a security incident and this was not.
Okay. And that sounds a lot like, like I'm hearing a lot of sort of biological similarity there to biological systems. Well, and in those, homogeneity is sort of an existential problem, right? It sounds like there may be a place for diversity amongst these agents based on some of the things you were saying, Ellie, that if you're needing to have the same operation performed by different agents and being able to sort of compare them and see if one's gone rogue because the other three don't, etc. It sounds like an interesting ecosystem is definitely the word that's coming to mind here. I don't know, Jose, if you wanted to sort of elaborate a little bit on that.
No, 100%. I think that if it's going to be difficult to detect flaws in agents, and like the usual flaws. right now, these are, elements that are working on your behalf. You are giving a lot of they need to for work like this, a lot of resources, all your resources, all your permissions, everything. So one thing is the model flow? No, not the model, sorry, the agent. But another is the behavior of the agent. It's like another layer of abstraction into the whole conversation. It's like, yeah, the model is doing what the agent is doing, what it should do, but it's not right. I mean, this is giving my address to everyone. So, and that's but that's another layer of security. It's like, and probably this is going to be another new market because this is like the policy. Sorry, I don't want it to say policy. I want police. You want a police. You want some agent that is taking care about the behavior of other agents. Exactly the same that you have a police for humans.
So that's I was hoping this was going that direction, because I'm wondering if can you reliably, because it almost sounds like you're trying to solve a problem with another version of the same problem, which is, can you rely on agents to police other agents, or do you inevitably have to fall into some sort of like escape out of the box and have this non-agentic backplane that is providing that security? But then you know what's the hope of that in an AI world? It's presumably AI is going to have to be keeping up with things. So how do we feel? Like, is it agents versus agents, or is this going to be some sort of like escape route?
This is singularity, isn't it? Is that the moment you are in that place is almost the singularity. Is you need to rely on those things, or maybe you are creating like a structure that is protecting itself, like the same way you have here in Spain. We have two different police, right? Like you have Guardia Civil and you have National Police, and in the United States you have FBI and different, are different things that are taking care about something very similar, but they are taking care about themselves, one or to the other. I think that maybe we can. I mean, this is a speculation. This is speculation for maybe three months from now. You never know at this pace, but this is speculation. But or you are creating an structure that is protecting itself, or you need to, or you stop everything because it's a singularity, and then you say, okay, panic button, or then you rely on the things and say, as Ali said, Anthropic has detected that the sonnet has, like a high goal, and that's super scary. It's like, what? This model is the behavior of the model. The model is deciding the human. It knows that it's being watched, so it's deciding the whole thing. It's like, well, if you cannot even have confidence in the brain, when you put arms to that brain, it's like, what? It's going to escape my control 100%. Yeah, singularity.
I really like the way you phrase that. Yeah, if we are not confident in the brain, like what, if we're gonna put arms and legs on, which are, the examples like tools, like connecting it to different APIs and all these, and like your entire, like, your system, and you're gonna put it in your cloud, for example, your environment. Yeah, not a good thing.
By the way, I am one of the optimistic ones.
Okay.
This is the scary thing, probably.
Optimistic we'll get to the singularity, or optimistic we'll solve all the problems before we do?
I like to think that I am optimistic in every single but when you think about this, I mean, is the probability of this thing, the probability is so low that you can simply ignore that thing or not? That's probably the most important question. But anyway, this is a natural force. I don't think that this is what no one can stop it. This is going to happen, inevitable, 100%. We need to figure out how to do these things. but it's been so fast that I don't know if we are prepared to put the things, together. But yeah, we will figure it out. We have always been to.
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm been thinking about related to this is, how long have we spent trying to get humans to write secure code? And how long have we been trying to solve, insider threat, for example? I think we're gonna have to like babysit agents the same way that we're going to have to babysit and have been humans. And we're never going to, get it to be 100% correct. Like you're never gonna like I mean, hopefully you can, but like you're never going to hire someone with 100% certainty that like this person's never going to submit a vulnerability to my code base, or I'm never going to run the risk of having someone that I've hired that, actually is an insider threat. Like I think we just like saw that with like the deal versus like rippling thing that's didn't go. I don't, who knows if that's true or not, but whatever. I mean, insider threat is a thing. And writing insecure code is a thing, whether it's intentional or not. It happens. Mistakes are made, and I think we're going to see agents make the same sort of mistakes. And I think we just need to, instead of like trying to get to this like place of nothing will ever go wrong, where they're going to be so good that like nothing bad will happen. I think we just need to expect things to go wrong and have methods in place to catch it and fix it in time. I think like so a defense in depth approach to security, having different checks all the way through the software development lifecycle, all the way from beginning scanning our models, scanning our code, and then all the way to the runtime security piece. We're looking for prompt injections, we're looking for biased outputs, toxic outputs, and being able to evaluate and iterate from there. I think that's sort of like, I guess, like where I'm seeing I think things are headed.
Yeah, 100% agree, by the way.
Yeah. So I think that pretty much wraps things up. I think it was a very nice summary of where things are at and where things are heading. So with that, I will say thank you to Ali and to Jose. To the watchers and listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, please make sure to sort of like and subscribe and all that kind of jazz. Follow us on social media, etc. Also, we'd love to hear your thoughts on what you'd like to have us talking about, or if you're interested in talking on the podcast as well, more than happy to have you and hear and your thoughts. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.